In this lecture, we will discuss about the cell physiology, the physiology of the cell. We have already discussed about the anatomy of the cell in the earlier lecture, and here we'll discuss about the physiology. The cells are the smallest structural and functional units of the body, which we have already discussed. And let's see what is cell physiology. Cell physiology is a study of activities taking place within the cell. All those functions or activities that takes place within the cell is included in the cell physiology. This keeps the cell alive. And physiology refers to normal functions in a living organism. The normal functions or the activities that are taking place in a cell is cell physiology or the physiology of the cell. The cell consists of a cell membrane, cytoplasm, and various organelles within it. Here you can see that in the diagram. Here the outer protective wall, the boundary is cell membrane or the plasma membrane. Inner to the plasma membrane, the area is called cytoplasm, and there are various organelles present within the cytoplasm. We'll discuss all of these and their functions. Let's see cell membrane. Cell membrane, this is otherwise called plasma membrane, which is the outer protective covering of the cell. And this plasma membrane separates the internal and external environments of the cell. This is the internal environment of the cell, and outside is the external environment of the cell. And this plasma membrane separates the internal as well as the external atmosphere, environment of the cell. The fluid inside the cell is called the fluid outside the cell is called extracellular fluid, ECF. Outside is extracellular fluid, and inside is intracellular fluid. So here this is the cell membrane. We'll discuss in detail about it and how it is made of and what are its functions. We'll discuss. The fluid inside the cell is called intracellular fluid, ICF. The cell membrane, it acts as a selective barrier which will allow the selected substances to get into and get out of the cell. This is a semi-permeable membrane and which allow exchange of certain substances. It exchanges certain substances, some selected substances, and between the extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. So it helps in exchange of certain substances into and out of the cell. It is a semi-permeable membrane, and it is not permeable. It is impermeable to large molecules such as proteins, and it is selectively permeable to some of the small molecules such as ions and metabolites. And let's see the composition of cell membrane. How is it made of? What is it contained? The cell membrane is composed of three types of substances such as proteins, lipids, and carbohydrates. Protein amounts to 55%, lipids 40%, and carbohydrates about 5%. Let's first discuss the proteins. The proteins in the cell membrane. Protein layer of the cell membrane is situated on either side of the central lipid layer, on both sides of the lipid layer. You can see that here. So here these are protein, okay, and these are present on both sides of the central bilipid layer, phospholipid layer. These protein molecules are of two categories. There are two types: integral proteins and or transmembrane protein, and peripheral protein or peripheral membrane protein. Integral protein and peripheral protein, these are the two types of proteins in the cell membrane. So you can see that here this is an integral protein and this is a peripheral protein present at the periphery. We'll discuss about it. First, let's see the integral protein. Integral proteins are also called transmembrane protein. It is present across the membrane, Hence it is called integral protein or the transmembrane protein. These protein molecules pass through the entire length of this cell membrane. It is present from one side of the cell membrane to the other side. It is present, or it lies, or it crosses across the cell membrane, plasma membrane, from one side of the cell membrane to the other side. The next is peripheral protein. Peripheral proteins are also called peripheral membrane protein. They are peripheral, they are present at the periphery. Peripheral membrane protein. They do not penetrate through the cell membrane. They do not cross across the cell membrane. They are embedded partially in the inner and outer surfaces of the cell. Partially it is present inside and partially it is present outside. Functions of protein layer. Let's see the functions of the integral proteins as well as the peripheral protein. Integral protein, they help in the transport of substances across the cell membrane. This integral protein, it's helping in the transport of substances across the cell membrane. And some of the integral protein, they act as carrier protein. They act as carrier protein, helping in the transport of certain molecules across the cell membrane. It is helping in the transport of substances. The integral proteins, they also act as receptors which can bind with various hormones. Some of them, they act as pumps. Example, in the case of sodium potassium pump, which can actively transport substances such as sodium ions and potassium ions across their concentration gradients. So in the integral protein, they act as transport of help in the transport of substances. They act as carrier proteins. They act as receptors for various hormones, and they act as pumps. Example, sodium potassium pump, which help in the transport of sodium ions and potassium ions against their concentration gradient. Now let's see the lipids in the cell membrane. The major lipids in the cell membrane include phospholipids and cholesterol. So this is a phospholipid molecule with a hydrophilic head and hydrophobic tail. Let's see. Phospholipids. Phospholipid molecules are formed by phosphorus and fatty acids. And phospholipid molecules, they are arranged in two layers. There are two layers of the phospholipid molecule. You can see that in the diagram here. A layer of phospholipid molecule and another layer of phospholipid molecule. It makes it a phospholipid bilayer. Bi means two. There are two layers of phospholipid molecules. Phospholipid molecules resembles to a headed pin, a pin with a head. The headed portion is water soluble. The headed portion is water soluble, and it attracts water, and hence it is hydrophilic. And this tail portion is not water soluble, and which is water phobic, hydrophobic. The tail portion is not soluble in water and is hydrophobic. The tail portion of the phospholipid molecule meets at the center of the cell membrane. It is meeting at the center of the cell membrane. The tail of the phospholipid molecules, they meet at the center. The head portion of the outer layer of the phospholipid bilayer, is facing the extracellular fluid. So, see, this is the cell membrane, and this is the extracellular fluid, and this becomes the intracellular fluid. So the heads of the outer layer is facing towards the extracellular fluid. The head portion of the outer layer faces the extracellular fluid, and the head of the inner layer faces the cytoplasm or the intracellular fluid. The head portion of the inner layer of the phospholipid bilayer faces the cytoplasm, This layer is facing the cytoplasm, and this layer is facing the extracellular fluid outside the cytoplasm. Now let's see the cholesterol. Cholesterol molecule is arranged between the phospholipid molecules. Cholesterol molecules are arranged in between the phospholipid molecules. The cholesterol helps to hold the phospholipids in the cell membrane. It is holding the phospholipid molecules in the cell membrane. This cholesterol maintains the structural integrity of the cell membrane, helping in maintaining the structural integrity of the cell membrane. And let's see the functions of the lipid layer. The lipid layer is a semi-permeable in nature, and it allows only fat-soluble substances to pass through, such as carbon dioxide, oxygen, and alcohol is allowed to pass through. And it does not allow water-soluble substances such as glucose, electrolytes, and urea to pass through. So this is acting as a semi-permeable membrane. And the carbohydrates in the cell membrane. Now I'll discuss about the carbohydrates. The carbohydrate molecules, they form a thin covering over the entire surface of the cell membrane. And that covering, which covers the entire surface of the cell membrane, is called glycocalyx. Some of the carbohydrate molecules are attached to the protein. They are attached to the protein and they form glycoprotein. Okay, some of the carbohydrate molecules are attached to the protein molecules. They are called glycoproteins. Some of the carbohydrate molecules are also attached to the lipids, and they are called glycolipids. You can see that here. Glycolipids attached to the lipids, glycolipids. Let's see what is the function of the carbohydrates in the cell membrane. So glycocalyx from the neighboring cells, the nearby cells, will help in the tight fixation of one cell with another. It helps in the binding of the cells. Some of the carbohydrate molecules act as receptors for some of the hormones. And carbohydrate molecules are negatively charged, and they do not allow negatively charged substances to move into and out of the cell. This is also helping in the selective transport. So we'll discuss about the membrane transport later. Okay, the functions of the cell membrane. Now we'll see the functions of the cell membrane itself. Cell membrane, they protect the cytoplasm. It's helping in protecting the cytoplasm and other organelles present within the cytoplasm. And cell membrane is responsible for maintaining the size and shape of the cell. Size and shape of the cell is maintained with the help of the cell membrane. And the cell membrane is acting as a selective barrier, which will allow only the selected substances to pass through. The nutrients are absorbed into the cell through the cell membrane. And waste materials that are excreted out of the cell that is also through cell membrane. Through the cell membrane, nutrients have been taken in, waste materials have been sent out. The exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide into and out of the cell also takes place through this cell membrane. Oxygen is taken in, carbon dioxide is sent out, and it is all through the cell membrane. And now the cytoplasm. We have been discussing the cell membrane. It's how is it made of, and what are its functions. Now we'll discuss about the cytoplasm present inner to the cell membrane. And it contains all cellular constituents. The cytoplasm contains cytosol and organelles, and in the cytosol, which is the fluid portion of the cytoplasm, the fluid portion of the cytoplasm is called cytosol, and this is the area where all cellular reactions takes place. The organelles include nucleus, mitochondria, ribosomes, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus, lysosome, cytoskeleton, etc., which we have already discussed about it in the anatomy section. Okay, now we'll discuss about each of it. So here you can see the cytoplasm, and in the cytoplasm we have cytosol, the fluid portion, and in the cytoplasm we have organelles, nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, ribosomes, Golgi complex, all these. Let's first discuss the nucleus. Nucleus is the largest organelle and which is contained within the cytoplasm of the cell. And there is a double membrane covering the nucleus, which is called the nuclear envelope, a double layered membrane covering the nucleus. And there are pores in the nuclear envelope, and those pores in the nuclear envelope are called nuclear pores. These are the nuclear pores. These nuclear pores will allow the transport of substances between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. So this helps in the transport of substances between the nucleus and the cytoplasm. There is a spherical body at the center of the nucleus. There is a spherical body. This spherical body is called nucleolus. And this nucleolus contains genetic material. And this genetic material controls the metabolic activities of the cell. Let's discuss the functions of the nucleus. It controls all cellular activities of the cell. It helps in cell division. It stores genetic information, hereditary information in its genes, and it transmits genetic information from one generation to next generation. And this nucleus synthesizes RNA. And the next is mitochondria. They are called the powerhouses of the cell as they generate ATP through chemical reactions. And the mitochondrial wall consists of two membranes, inner mitochondrial membrane and outer mitochondrial membrane. You can see that here, outer mitochondrial membrane, and inner to that, inner mitochondrial membrane is there. The inner mitochondrial membrane has many folds, infoldings, and these infoldings are called cristae. And these cristae will increase the surface area available for chemical reactions. The large area present at the center of the mitochondria is called its matrix. At the center, the central region is called its matrix, where all our chemical reactions takes place. Matrix is a fluid-filled cavity present inner to the inner mitochondrial membrane. Let's see the functions. It releases energy, and it is hence it is called the powerhouse of the cell. Now ribosomes, they are granular structures, granule shaped structures. They are sites for protein synthesis, and they produce synthesized protein from amino acids using RNA. They found on the surface of the nuclear envelope. Where are they found? They are found attached to the nuclear envelope. You can see that here. This is nuclear envelope. They are found attached to the nuclear envelope. They are found attached to the endoplasmic reticulum, especially to the rough endoplasmic reticulum. They are attached to the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and here they manufacture proteins, and later it is exported from the cell. And some of the ribosomes are free, or which are not attached, unattached, and so they synthesize proteins within the cytosol. And there are ribosomes present in the mitochondria. They synthesize mitochondrial proteins. Here these granular structures are called ribosomes, and they are the sites for protein synthesis. Now endoplasmic reticulum, there is a series of interconnected membranous canals. You can see that here, interconnected membranous canals, you can see that here, and all these are endoplasmic reticulum. They extend from the nuclear envelope. They are extending from the nuclear envelope. They continue from the nuclear envelope. They are involved in transport of proteins. Their functions include, the main function is transport of proteins. There are two different types of endoplasmic reticulum, rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. The first one is rough endoplasmic reticulum. To its walls, the ribosomes are attached, making it rough in appearance. And this is smooth endoplasmic reticulum, where there are no ribosomes attached. Then the functions of endoplasmic reticulum. Ribosomes are attached to the walls of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and there are the sites for protein synthesis. And ribosomes which are not attached to the walls, they are smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and that helps in the synthesis of lipids, steroids, cholesterol, and carbohydrates. They also involve in the detoxification of some of the drugs as well as alcohol. Then Golgi apparatus, they are closely folded, flattened membranous sacs. a membranous sacs which are closely folded membranous sacs, and then the ends are bulged. It has bulging ends and closely folded, flattened membranous sacs. Functions include they are concerned with processing and transport of proteins and lipids. They process and transport proteins as well as lipids to different parts of the cell. They transport proteins to different parts of the cell. You can see that here they form a secretory vesicle and they are being transported to different parts of the cell. So it packs in the processed materials into secretory vesicles. They packs it into secretory vesicle, and they transport them out of the cell or into other part of the cell. It functions like a shipping department which ships material substances packed in secretory vesicle to from one part of the cell to another part of the cell, or from one cell to another cell, and it sorts out the materials and it distributes them to proper destinations. Now I'll discuss about the lysosomes. Lysosomes, they are spherical vesicles. You can see that in the diagram, the spherical shaped vesicles containing lysosomal enzymes within it. And the interior maintains a pH of 5, which is very acidic, and than that of the cytosol. And the lysosomal enzymes, they act best in acidic medium. Lysosomal enzymes which are present within the lysosomes will act best in an acidic medium. Functions of lysosomes include it act as a waste disposal system of the cell. They digest, destroy, completely remove the unwanted materials of the cytoplasm, and they also help to recycle the damaged cell structures within the cell. You can see the different layers: glycosylated membrane, there is a lipid layer, and in we have hydrolytic enzymes. There are lysosomal enzymes which will destroy, digest all those unwanted materials within the waste materials in this cell. Then cytoskeleton, we have already discussed about it in the anatomy also. They are small protein fibers. You can see that in the diagram. These fibers, the small protein fibers, that include microfilaments, microtubules, centrosomes, and cell extensions. So microfilaments are smallest protein fibers, and they provide structural support to the cell and maintains the shape of the cell. And it also helps in the contraction of the cell, as in the case of a muscle cell which has to contract and relax. So it helps in the contraction of the cell. Microtubules, they are larger protein fibers, and they help in the movement of organelles within the cell, and it also helps in the movement of chromosomes during cell division, and it helps in the movement of cell extensions. Cell extensions include cilia and flagella. We'll discuss it. And centrosomes, this is a pair of centrioles, and the centrioles are cluster of microtubules. Microtubules, and these centrosomes, they play an important role during cell division, helps in cell division. Cell extensions, which include cilia and flagella, they extend from the plasma membrane. They are extensions of the plasma membrane, and cilia are hair-like projections. Cilia hair-like projections present on the free border of the cells, and cilia help in the movement of substances along its surface. Example, the movement of mucus along the respiratory tract. The inner mucosa is of ciliated columnar epithelium, and that helps in the movement of sputum and the foreign bodies through the respiratory tract to the throat, from where it can be spitted out. Okay, so this is helping in the movement of substances. Okay, in flagella, this is a single long whip-like structure, as in the case of a sperm cell: head, body, and the tail. So this is a flagella. This is flagella, a long whip-like structure, helps in the movement of the cell. Example, the tail of the spermatozoa. So this was all about the physiology of the cell. The physiology of the cell membrane, plasma membrane, the physiology of the cytoplasm, the physiology of organelles present in the cytoplasm, the various organelles, the functions of the various organelles have been discussed. I hope it is understood to everyone. Thanks for watching. Please do subscribe, like, and share. Thank you.